You're tuned in to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast, where we are showcasing the coolest brands and gifts while featuring movers and makers. I'm your host, Lenore, and on this episode, we're going to learn about the third largest single employer of visually impaired people in the United States. They're called Alphapointe. They've been empowering the blind to achieve their goals and their aspirations. You may even recognize their brand Skillcraft at your local stores, or you may even have used a Skillcraft pen or have one in your bag right now. So to share more about their brand, we've invited their National Sales Manager, Manufacturing and E-commerce, Dustin to the show. Dustin, welcome to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Now, tell us a little bit about Alphapointe and what this nonprofit organization does.
Okay, so this is a really different kind of organization. So I'm guessing most of your listeners probably are not familiar with this, but there's an entire industry that exists within the federal government. But our organization actually predates when that program started. We actually started back in 1911 as a nonprofit organization that initiated a woman whose brother was blind, actually started the organization because she wanted to provide meaningful employment to people in the community who are blind or visually impaired. And so the organization started out, there was actually, we actually incorporated it in 1911 and have been growing since then. We started out making different things. It was a very entrepreneurial organization because, again, the whole mission of the organization was to create jobs. So our goal, our whole purpose for being was to be able to provide meaningful employment. And we found that, a lot of people with disabilities struggle with employment. That's very common even still to this day, unfortunately. But what we can do to provide meaningfulness and purpose to people in their lives a lot of times is to know that they're a contributing member of society. And so one of the best ways to do that is to be able to have a job. And so that's how our organization started. And then it came along in the 1930s as many of these types of organizations like Alphapointe existed, which, by the way, began in Kansas City. It used to be called Kansas City Association for the Blind. So we have since grown since the 1930s. The government program was put into place to allow the government to be able to buy from these organizations. And so Alphapointe, along with many others, were given opportunities to bid on government contracts. And so we provide products and services now to this day to the federal government under a program called Ability One. Again, most people who aren't in the federal government probably don't even know about that or know it exists. But for us, it's really meaningful. And actually now for thousands of people across the country who are blind and visually impaired, they can find meaningful employment, get regular wages, normal benefits, and a good job at an organization that provides a contract or a service to the government. So that's what we do.
Now, do you have to be in Kansas? I'm assuming your headquarters are in Kansas City. Now, do you have to be in Kansas City in order to get this employment, or do you employ people that are across the United States?
So Alphapointe has expanded. Now, there are other organizations around the country that do what we do, but now Alphapointe is across 9 locations in 4 different states. So we actually have been working with other sister organizations, we call them, that do the same thing that we do and partner with them, and actually merged with one that's in New York City. So we have 2 locations, both 2 major locations anyway. The biggest ones are in Kansas City, Missouri, where our headquarters is. And then also in what was up until just 2 years ago was in Brooklyn, New York, has moved out to Queens. So we are in Jamaica, actually Richmond Hill, New York.
You're right by the baseball stadium. So you're good to go.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So anyway.
Where did the name Alphapointe come from?
So, well, there's a story behind that.
Okay, yeah. I'm ready.
Formerly being Kansas City Association for the Blind, and we started to grow, we realized that we needed something that identified us more just as a presence. And really, Alphapointe was just part of a branding initiative to try to make sure that people understood that we can be the first point of contact when you lose your vision. So I mentioned earlier that we're very entrepreneurial and we do a lot of things, to provide jobs, and we have all sorts of different contracts, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But what's really, really neat is the money that we use that comes in, the revenue that comes in from the sales of our products actually goes right back into our organization to provide services in our community. So we have rehabilitation services. We have occupational therapists on staff that go into people's homes and have nothing to do with the manufacturing side or any of that part of our business. It's just strictly people in our community who are losing their vision, whether it's little kids or even those who are aging and elderly. We go into their homes. We have them come here sometimes as well and show them how to be able to function, how to do just everyday living activities and do them better so that they can be productive. They can use the public transit without being afraid of getting out and in the community, go grocery shopping on their own and not necessarily feel like they have to rely on their friends or their family to do those things for them.
So you've been with the company for years now. What have you learned from watching all these individuals kind of grow and achieve and really take the next step in their lives?
Well, it's been an interesting journey. I actually started out in the sales part of our organization, which was always a challenge for me to try to describe to somebody what I do for a living. What do you do? Well, I'm a sales manager, but I'm working for a nonprofit. It just seems counterintuitive. So anyway, I started out and I've worked my way up into different parts of the organization. But now, I've seen the people who have started back when I started. In fact, a guy who started at the same time I did, and he still works here today. I work with him every day. He's in customer service and he manages orders, and we're doing Teams chat and things back and forth. But, for me, it's been a real growth as well, watching, and interacting with people who have a disability and learning how I can be sensitive about that, but without feeling like I have to walk on eggshells. There's a lot of people around here. I always say that some of the people I work with have the best blind jokes I've ever heard in my life. So we have a lot of fun with it. It's very jovial, but at the same time, it's a place of empowerment. So people aren't afraid of it anymore. It's something that people talk about openly. It's been really neat to be able to see how I have been able to recognize anybody now with a disability and not see them differently like I think I would have prior to starting this job.
Now, Alphapointe makes dozens of different products like that you can use on a daily basis. Now, what is one of the ones that is the easiest to make for your employees? Because I'm not sure how you guys do it. If you're visually impaired and you're blind, how does that process work with manufacturing things without physically being able to see it? I don't want to sound insensitive when I ask that, but I would love to hear how.
Right. It's a real interesting challenge at times. So the engineering of the workflow that goes into making a product or assembling a product or packaging a product. And you're right, we do make a lot of different products, and it is all across the board. We mass produce plastic bottles, and we also make just simple writing pens, like writing instruments, pens and pencils and markers. And so there's a wide variety of things, and they're completely different customers and users, as well as a completely different manufacturing process. And it's been a challenge to engineer things, but that's what we do. We want to be the example for any company, just to show that just because somebody has a disability doesn't mean that you can write them off and just assume that they can't do a job. So it's almost a little bit of a challenge for us to find jobs that you would think can't be done by somebody who's visually impaired and make it a job for somebody who's visually impaired. In fact, a good example of that is running some of our injection molding machinery. So we have a lot of different types of machinery back there. And injection molding is one of the biggest departments that we have here in Kansas City. And all those machines are worked around and operated or run by people who are visually impaired. Some people, of course, when you say blind, could include people who have low vision or not able to drive, would be a good qualifier, maybe, for example. But, being able to have a job and show them that you can do this. We just are going to put in maybe certain sensors or make magnification equipment available to you, or even in some cases, some of the machines, you'll have a machine that was built by somebody around the world, not for somebody who is blind, but we've attached Braille labels on the machine or large print where the buttons are so people can see what those functions are. And we train people how to use those and learn to listen to the machines and be able to function just like normal.
That training process must be very rigorous.
Yeah. Our occupational therapists have a full-time job just helping our employees sometimes make sure that they're able to stay safe. And that being said, I think I saw in the break room earlier today, there was 120 days accident-free. So we're all celebrating that number. It's a big deal for us.
Yeah, I wouldn't put myself in there because I would be so nervous around heavy machinery and things like that. Now, one of the products you do have are your tactical pens. You do brand everything under Skillcraft. Tell us a little bit about that product.
So real briefly, basically the program, when it started, had a brand, and it's called Skillcraft, as you mentioned. That brand is all products that are made by people with disabilities. And so anytime anybody sees a product with the brand Skillcraft on it, they can know that that product was either made or assembled or packaged by somebody who had a disability. What's unique about the products that we have nowadays versus when the program first started decades ago is that we started out making commodities, and we progress as we recognize the need has changed to keep up with our customers. So, for example, when we sell to the federal government, one of the biggest departments of the federal government is the Department of Defense. And while we have sold to the Department of Defense since World War II, we actually have changed from making just a standard regular ballpoint pen, which, like the pen that I'm holding here, like a standard, what a lot of people would think of as a Bic pen. This is actually an Alphapointe pen. So it looks just like a Bic pen, but we've made this for decades. It's not new. We still make them. But now, as times have changed and we sell to the military, we recognize the need for different types of products for different applications. And so even though we don't have an R&D department, you think of R&D as research and develop, our research and develop for decades in this program had been just not research and develop. It was rob and duplicate. We would just make the same things that the commercial world was making, but we would make it for the government. So what we've done differently now is we've started to innovate recently as we found the customers' needs have progressed. And we have a whole lineup of what we call tactical pens. Actually, there's a poster behind me with one of them in the picture. They're a lot of times black metal pens, heavy duty construction. And these pens are designed for a specific purpose. We have different models for different purposes. So like the one that's on the poster behind me is called a B3 pen, is actually used by military pilots. So it's designed though with 3 different functions, and it's really, really slim. It's super, super small. And it has a black pen, a red pen, and a 0.5 millimeter pencil. But it's all 3 inside one writing instrument. So you actually twist it. As you twist it, there's a pen, pencil. And so this is 3 in 1. And you wouldn't think, well, that's a multifunction pen. That's not necessarily that big of a deal. What's special about it is that it's really super slim. So it's designed to fit in the flight suit sleeve pockets for military aviators. They wear these flight suits that have really, really small sleeve pockets for pens. And it's about the size of a pencil, the thickness of a pencil. And so it has to be really thin to be able to fit in that pocket. But pilots only have 2 of those pockets on one arm. So now they can carry a black pen, a red pen, and a pencil in just one pocket. So 3 in 1 writing instruments. And really, to be honest, while it doesn't sound like that big of a deal to us, for pilots, they can't get enough of it because they know that they need, maintenance logs have to be written with pencil, and certain other type of applications need a red pen and then a black pen for everything else. They can't carry 3 instruments when they only have 2 slots. So just a silly little thing that seems small to us, but it's a big deal to them.
I have one fighter pilot friend. So if I ask him, I could just be like, "Hey, Matt, do you have tactical pens in your arm?" Is that what I could ask him to see?
Ask him if he has an Aviator pen, and I'd be willing to bet you dollars to donuts he knows that pen.
I'm writing this down so I don't. Aviator pen.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely have. He's one of my brother's friends. I don't know what the heck he does. He just flies fighter pilots. He was in Germany like last week doing gosh knows what. But I want to see I want to see it. Watch, it's going to be the exact one. Be like, duh.
Right. They all know it. It's almost become a I can't think of the word.
It's not generic. It's a staple. That's not the word either.
Yeah, it's almost kind of become a staple.
Okay,
it's just become a thing for them. At any rate, it's become very, very popular with fighter pilots. They absolutely love it. And we've got other models. In fact, what I was getting feedback about, one of our pens was it's called a Luminator. And it's got a red light on the end, on the same end where you write. So I've got a Luminator pen here. It has the light on the end where you write. We call it light as you write. But this Luminator pen is for a very specific purpose. We had guys that were out in the field They needed to be able to see in the dark without sending off, a signal to people at long distances that, by turning on a flashlight. So this is a very, very subtle light, a pen light, where they can actually light at the same time. And it's very focused right there, just in the area where they're writing. So our Luminator pen was very popular with people on the ground. But then as pilots started using it, pilots that fly at night use night vision goggles, and their night vision goggles are not compatible with red. So we listened to our customers, and we actually rolled out a green light version of the same thing, which is the same color as the night vision goggle screen that they have in their NVGs. So we've had to adapt and learn what products are good and how to adapt for the customer. And so we listen to our customers and get that kind of feedback from them.
I know that your customers for those are specifically like the military, but I feel like I would use the Aviator pen, because I kind of like the twist instead of the pens that have the blue, the red, the green, and the black that push down.
Yeah.
Or, if this is just for anybody, whether you are visually impaired or not, even using the last one you showed, which was the light at the bottom, it made me think of when I was in regular gen ed classes in college, right? Mm-hmm. And they would have the lights down and they'd have the projector up. And so you're kind of sitting in the dark. So if you wanted to take notes and you're not on your computer, you can kind of have that little light there. And it's not me with my flashlight, try to put it down, can I see? So for the everyday consumer, somebody like myself who's not in the military at all, are we able to purchase these pens, or you only can sell them to, the government?
Absolutely. So we actually have a lot of partners. We don't sell them direct very often. I mean, we have a couple places on our website, but we have very little traffic. We really focus on our dealer network. So we sell obviously through the military and through to the military through a network of different distributors and dealers. And several of them are listed online. So all of our tactical pens are online. We even have another tactical pen I didn't mention here that's real popular on Amazon in particular, that has a glass breaker on one end and a screwdriver inside of it. So, I don't know how well you can tell from the picture, but it's got a very mean looking metal barrel. So it's a really heavy duty aluminum frame. And like I say, you can open it up and there's a screwdriver inside. So that's another very consumer friendly item, which is found at home on Amazon. And it's called the Skillcraft Defender, by the way. But yeah, they're all available on the website. The Luminator pen, the B3 Aviator pen, and our Defender pen are all available through Amazon.
I hope you don't get offended when I compare it to this, but are your tactical pens like cockroaches and never die because that's the type of material they're made from?
Yes. In fact, so I'll back up here to an old product that we used to have. In fact, I've got one here. I'm going to pull it out. The old U.S. government pen, and people who have been in the military since World War II will recognize this. It's just a very standard little click pen, nothing fancy. But the thing about this pen is this was a Skillcraft product and has been made since the 1960s by people who were blind. And that pen, people joke around about, this thing will never die. And actually, our tactical pens kind of follow in the same vein. They are durable. They're heavy duty. They're designed for guys who are out in the field. They're going to be roughed up. They're going to be abused a little bit, and that's going to stand up to it.
It's like one of those pens that you find in your backyard as you're trying to dig holes and put pavers out. It's like, oh, how long has this been here? And it still writes? Whoa!
And it still writes. That's right. Yeah, in fact, National Ballpoint Pen Day, which we celebrate here, was back earlier this month in June. And we make a big deal about that because we've been making ballpoint pens for over 50 years now.
And I actually Googled just Skillcraft pens. And like you said, Amazon, Staples, Office Max, Office Depot. I pretty much, if you see a Skillcraft anywhere, that's you guys.
That's us. Yep. Us or one of our sister organizations. There's just a couple of us that make writing instruments and markers. And we're actually one of the biggest ones. So we make a lot of those different pens. And it's one thing to make a pen, but it's another thing when you can go back into the manufacturing department and you see somebody who's blind running an injection molding machine that's making pen barrels. And, we have a quality department with people who are low vision who come through and check them and grab certain amounts of pens and take them back and test them and make sure they're the right size and fit. And, that whole process of making a product from start to finish is really special when you have people who are involved at every stage of that process who are blind. And so it's really meaningful to our organization to see our customers really enjoy those products, because we have people who are not able to maybe serve in the military, or maybe even some people, we had some veterans too that have lost their vision since they were in the military. They come to work here and they're able to see the products that they're making, or they're involved with packaging or whatever stage of the process they're in. And they're able to see that product going out to their military customers and to our U.S., armed forces. And it's really touching to know that we're making an impact. I think it would be interesting to know if more people in the military knew when they use that Skillcraft pen that it was actually made by somebody who was blind on the other end.
Well, that's exactly how my teaser is going to go when I hit my brother's friend up and see, like, did you know? And if they didn't know, then I'm going to feel so educated and be like, you got to go back and tell all of your friends that now you have some inside deets.
Right.
So for those who are listening
and they're
now,
made in the USA.
Yeah. Actually, though, so for those who are listening now, aside from, supporting by buying any Skillcraft brands that you do see out there, how can anybody get involved and or help with Alphapointe overall?
Well, Alphapointe, as I mentioned earlier, has a lot of different programs and services, and we use a lot of volunteers. We have everything from, golf tournaments and fun events that we do, clear down to just coming in and volunteering and serving at one of our kids' camps. For example, actually today, as I'm speaking to you down the hall, there's about 30 kids who are visually impaired doing a technology camp today in our boardroom. And so they've got computers and laptops out, and they're involved with learning about technology and how the accessibility built into a lot of this technology can be used to make their lives easier and keep up with their peers. And so we do a lot of neat, fun things like that. Summer camps for kids where we take them horseback riding and they get to shoot archery. I mean, if you can imagine somebody who's visually impaired trying to shoot a bow and arrow, for the rest of us, it sounds kind of scary, but it's really empowering for the kids to be able to do these fun activities. And so we have all sorts of ways that people can be involved. They can go to our website, alphapointe.org, and between our location here in the Midwest and over on the East Coast in New York, we have activities, places that people can get involved and volunteer.
So once again, the website is alphapointe.org. That's ALPHAPOINTE. Do not forget the E and point, friends.
Right.
.org. You can check them out on Facebook at Alphapointe, on Instagram at AlphapointeKC, on Twitter at Alphapointe. They have a YouTube channel and they're on LinkedIn as well. So if you are listening to this and you do want to get involved, maybe you can hit them up through LinkedIn. Does that work, Dustin?
Absolutely. Yep. We are very active on social media. We have a large presence there and we'd love to get involved.
Well, Dustin, thank you so much for joining us on this episode and really, introducing me to Alphapointe, because before today or yesterday, I had no idea that you guys existed, and I had no idea that I've even supported by buying some of your pens out there. Like,
right.
Never knew.
Well, I'm so glad you guys had us. We really appreciate it. We look forward to hearing more and having customers reach out and learn more about us.
Now that's a wrap on another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select podcast. I'm your host, Lenore. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. More at brandambassadorselect.com, and we will see you next time.